record. Okay, this seems to work out good. I do the two a week on Monday and Thursday, and then I record them so if someone can't be here, they can watch a recording. Today we're basically kicking off a new week. Um, I hope everyone's doing okay. And we had homecoming last week, which was a big deal for a simple fact that a couple weeks ago we had no idea if we were going to be able to do any of that. You know, even the football game was up in the air about a month or two ago. And then they allowed more people in the stadium, more people in the, got the band in there, we got the POM team in there, so that worked out quite nicely. And I live streamed it, so those who couldn't make it, and that video is still on our YouTube channel for Harper Creek High School HCTV. But to our week here, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and fill you guys in on what's going on here. Okay, here is our sociology for this week. And like I said, we got our Zoom meeting here. And we're starting chapter 3. Just see if there's any general announcements here. I think pretty much I got everything here is okay. I'm going to go to classwork. Just to wrap up from last week, we had the Age of AI, which was a big video. It's like almost 2-hour video, but it's really well done. It's kind of high-level stuff, but it's stuff on the cutting edge. This is happening now. And it affects a lot with sociology, work, how we live, how we think, our privacy, and so forth. We had the cultural diversity video last week. That should have been quite interesting. And now we're going to go to this week. The one thing this week, chapter 3, just like with before, you're getting started. It's not due this week. I used to try doing part of it one week, and that didn't work too good. Now this one has 36 slides. It may only show 35, but there's a title one on there too, so that wasn't numbered. So it's 36 with that. Make sure you get the correct number of slides. And as always, pick a nice theme background, photo or graphic on each slide. Mix up the colors of the key terms at the top. You can just randomly go through, make some red, green, blue. And some people made all the text on the slide a different color in each one. That doesn't really look that good. Just do the key term. You can leave the default color for the definitions and stuff. And you got a new PDF for the chapter 3. Chapter 3 that we're starting here is called Social Structure. And we're going to be talking about things like social structure is the interrelated statuses and roles that guides human interaction. We're going to talk about your status and status of people in society, social institutions, and we're talking about things like ascribed status and achieved status and master status. And we're talking about role expectations and role performance. And I'm not going to go through all these right now, but we're going to be getting into things like that, role conflict and so forth. Pretty interesting, and it's very relatable to what's going on. So that'll be your kicking off chapter 3. Now, the earliest we'd have that test would be a week from Friday. That'd be the 23rd, but I don't think we'll have it that early because next weekend we have a 4-day weekend. So, question or just join us? Okay, so next weekend we have a 4-day weekend, so I didn't put too heavy a work around here. And so that's be the slides. They're a little less than the ones you did before, and you will be wrapping those up next week. Now, I'll get to this frontline video here in a moment. Before I do that, I'll take a quick look at these other 2 videos. The first one due, which is due in Wednesday, but it's an easy one, is this TED Talk. And what I'm doing here is I have you watch the TED Talk. I have you make your own document, put your name, put the name of the video, and at least a 6-sentence summary about this video. And I put a little ideas here, things you can write about. What does she talk about? Who is she? What is the style of her presentation? Any examples of what she talked about? You might say, what do you mean by style of presentation? Well, in her case, she uses humor. So that is something that you can mention. She's a comedian basically, and she uses humor on some very serious topics too. And she talks about some things about herself and some various things she and others have gone through. And she's got a unique background in some unique circumstances. So that's not a lot to write, but make sure if you want full credit, if it says 6 or more sentences, you do 6 or more sentences. Don't do 3. Okay. And now at this point, I'm not even about, oh, go ahead and fix it. We're way beyond that now. If you chose to do 3 when the direction said 6, that's it. I mean, the first couple of weeks, yeah, people are getting used to this. Someone said, oh, I didn't know 6 really meant 6. Well, it does. So if it says 6, if you do less than that, I assume you don't want full credit. Okay. It's not that hard, and do your best. Now, that doesn't count the summary, the opinion, right? A 4 or more sentence opinion. Now, the opinion can be about the presentation, anything you brought up in the presentation, any issues that come up, things you agree with or disagree with. You can just talk about what you learned. You talk about the style, the way it was given, anything like that. And that should be very easy to write at least 4 sentences about that. And again, if you want full credit, do the 4 sentences, do a good job. You can always do more. Some of you do way more, and that's great when you find something you're interested in. And so that's an interesting one. I'm not going to go into what it is. I think you'll be surprised. Being 13, that's back to another type of teen type documentary. It's a CNN documentary this time. And it just did, now this is from a few years ago, so some things may have changed. So I do mention that in the assignment. So if you think some of that still applies, some of it's a little different now. But it's an interesting video. I think it's about 45 minutes if I remember. It's pretty interesting though. It's about 13-year-olds, which you guys, some of you may be 13, most of you are probably a bit older, but I think you'll find it quite interesting. And some of the things they deal with and go through in social media and technology and parents and whatever. Okay, so I think you're going to find that quite interesting. Now, this next one here is very relevant because the lay feature in here is still alive, and she was all over the news with some of the issues and problems involving prejudice and discrimination and other type issues that came up this year in the news. And it goes back to a documentary that came out back in the 1980s, and part of it was filmed in 1970. It's called A Class Divided, and it's 53 minutes. And in the past, when I've shown this in sociology, and I had students write about it, that at the end of the semester, when I'd ask people like, oh, what'd you like best? A lot of them mention this video, not because it's enjoyable, not because it's entertaining, but it has an impact and it gets people thinking. So what is Class Divided? I want to set it up a little bit here, what to expect. Back in the late 1960s, we had civil rights protests and marches and that about racial discrimination and other issues at the time. And the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. was a big leader of these civil rights, nonviolent, peaceful protests, and he was assassinated, which led to obviously a lot of people being shocked and upset and saddened. Well, a teacher in Iowa, of all places, a small town in Iowa, in an elementary school with all white students in the class, decided that her students in that type of setting should probably learn something about discrimination and prejudice. Now, of course, it's not the same thing at all. No one's saying that this is going to make them fully understand what some other people may be going through. But she did a little experiment. And then she started doing it in her classes. Now, this wasn't filmed the first time she did it. It was filmed a couple years later in 1970. That's part of the documentary. So you have these kids, I think they're like 3rd grade or thereabout, and she divides the class into 2 groups. One group is the blue-eyed group, and one group is the brown-eyed group. And one day, the blue-eyed group gets all the privileges and treated well and told how wonderful they are and everything. And then they put down the brown-eyed group, and they discriminate against the brown-eyed group, and they engage in various prejudice and put downs of the brown-eyed group. Then the next day, the two groups switch. And the group that was on top one day becomes the group that's discriminated against and put down and looked down upon the second day. Now, this is only a 2-day exercise. That's it, just 2 days, not a whole lifetime, 2 days. And when they were done, at the time the students were doing it, many of them engaged in mean behaviors. And they talked about some of the issues going on at the time, especially with racial discrimination. And at least one of the kids, used the N-word. I mean, it's terrible, but he probably heard it at home and he made some comments about it. So the kids had some of these prejudices that they were hearing elsewhere and possibly learning elsewhere. But the positive thing is, after they went through it, they got at least a little bit of an idea what it might be like to be discriminated against or be on the receiving end of prejudice. And then the other part of the documentary jumps ahead 14 years to where they're adults. And they get together for a reunion, a bunch of them, and they rewatch the documentary, which had originally been a news documentary, and they talk about this and how it changed their thinking and their behaviors and things they may not have been as much aware about. So in that sense, it's quite inspirational. And they also, part of it, they went and did this same thing with adults that worked at a prison, and you'll see how that turned out. And then when you're done with this, the assignment that you're going to do is going to simply be, it's right here. You put your name of the video, a summary. It's not a real long summary. I didn't make you write a lot. Well, 2 paragraphs. So make sure you get 2 6+ sentence paragraphs. But for all that happens in there, there's plenty to write about. And then your opinion. And you can go in a little bit, not just about the documentary, but the issue of prejudice and discrimination and things like that. I actually got a typo there. It says views on this topic. I'll fix that. It says any views that should be on this topic. So I think you'll find this quite interesting, educational, and many found it inspirational in the sense that, yeah, these are tough topics to talk about, but they're important and people can learn from it. And, hopefully you'll get that out of it. So I try to find relevant and interesting things. Again, not everything is directly about the chapter we're covering at the moment, but it is sociology and trying to find some good stuff for you guys. So it's really not that hard of a week. Get some started on some on your slides. You can knock out this first TED Talk by Wednesday. That will take you, half hour, 40 minutes or so. The Being 13 is a little longer documentary, but I think you'll find it quite interesting and do the assignment with it. That'll be due Thursday. You can knock it out ahead of time, no problem. I gave you till the weekend to get this one here done, this front line. But I told you up front, there's a little bit of rough language in there. But, unfortunately, that was how some people spoke at that time. And fortunately, there's, less of that hopefully going on today. Be nice if none of it was going on today. And the slides get at least started on this week, and you can finish them up next week. So that's pretty much what's going on with all that. I'm going to end my sharing here. And I'm looking here to see if you can either unmute yourself or type in the chat if you have any questions about anything or comments about anything. Okay. Yeah, if anyone looks in the chat now and said, what are all those comments? If you weren't here at the beginning, I was testing out some microphones. So that's what was going on. But I'm just trying to find a better way. But I'm here in the studio. For this type of class, you probably don't need to come in for extra help. It's more the kind of thing that you could probably deal with, like we do with Zoom or texting or email. But if you ever wanted to come in for some reason, I'm here on Wednesdays. Students do come in for help, not just for me, but other teachers and do that. Most of you have been doing everything on time, doing your work, taking the test and that. But as always, and many of you have done this already, be in touch with me if something unusual goes on. Whatever it may be, internet goes down, your family has an emergency and it gets in the way of getting some assignments done or taking a test or something, just text me, email me, and we can work it out. Okay, so that's all we're going to do today on our Zoom. I appreciate those of you that came here and I don't have to watch it later. And I'm doing stuff I think is important to watch. And so those that aren't here, I'm going to highly recommend they watch a Zoom later. Okay, well, you guys have a good day. If there's no questions or anything, take care. And we'll be back here Thursday at 2 o'clock. Okay, take care.